Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 5 2024 NFL predictions. For the Fanatic last week, I definitely rebounded in some way. Last week, I did rebound a little bit against the spread. I'm now 6-10 against the spread. I went 6-10 against the spread last week, and I went 9-7 straight up. So again, I had a winning record above 500 straight up. That's at least a positive sign moving forward. But now overall for the year, I am now against the spread 25, 36, and 3, which equals 41.4%, which is very unfortunate after such the great beginning I had week 1. And now straight up through 64 games, I am now 37 and 27, which equals 57.8% straight up. This video is going to be quick because once again I only have a few minutes before I go to work. But let me tell everybody the buys real quickly. The Detroit Lions, the Tennessee Titans, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Los Angeles Chargers all have buys this week. So if you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Calvin Ridley, Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, Titans defense, Nick Folk, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, the Eagles defense, the Eagles offensive line, Jake Elliott, Herbert, Ladd McConkey, the Chargers defense, Cameron Dicker. Any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this weekend. We are now in the bye season, and for the next 2 weeks at least, we'll have 14 games to pick from instead of the usual 16. So a little bit less margin for error. Alright, it's time for my quicks very quickly. So on Thursday, when the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Atlanta to take on the 2-2 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 1.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here plus 1.5, and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game in London, the first international game of the year, when the 2-2 New York Jets played the Minnesota Vikings, who were the home team, the 4-0 Minnesota Vikings in London. The Minnesota Vikings are 2.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Minnesota here minus 2.5, and Minnesota straight up. The next game, when the 1-3 Carolina Panthers travel to Chicago to take on the 2-2 Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are 4 point favorites in this game. Give me Chicago here minus 4 and Chicago straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-2 Baltimore Ravens travel to Cincinnati to take on the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals. The Baltimore Ravens are 2.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here minus 2.5 and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-3 Miami Dolphins travel to New England to take on the 1-3 New England Patriots. The Miami Dolphins are 1 point favorites in this game. And a slight upset here. Give me New England here, plus 1, and New England straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-3 Cleveland Browns travel to Washington, take on the 3-1 Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are 3 point favorites in this game. Give me Washington here, minus 3, and Washington straight up. Then next game, when the 2-2 Indianapolis Colts travel to Jacksonville to take on the 0-4 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 2.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Indianapolis here in an upset here, plus 2.5, and Indianapolis straight up. The next game in the game of the weekend, in my opinion, when the 3-1 Buffalo Bills travel to Houston, they only 3-1 Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 1 point favorites in this game. Give me Houston here minus 1, and Houston straight up. The next game in a battle of 500 AFC West teams, when the 2-2 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Denver to take on the 2-2 Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 2.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Denver here minus 2.5, and Denver straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-3 Arizona Cardinals travel to San Francisco to take on the 2-2 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 7.5 point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here minus 7.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-2 Green Bay Packers travel to Los Angeles to take on the 1-3 Los Angeles Rams. The Green Bay Packers are 3.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Green Bay here minus 3.5, and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-3 New York Giants travel to Seattle to take on the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 6 point favorites in this game. Give me the Seattle Seahawks here straight up, but I'm going to take the New York Giants plus 6. Then in the Sunday night game, when the 2-2 Dallas Cowboys travel to Pittsburgh to take on the 3-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Pittsburgh here minus 2.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, when the 2-2 New Orleans Saints travel to Kansas City to take on the 4-0 Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 5.5 point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here, plus 5.5, but I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. Alright, it's time for my very quick thoughts on each game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Atlanta Falcons. This is a game to where I'm taking Tampa Bay here, based on the fact that I feel like the Falcons, they really should have lost New Orleans last weekend. If Paulson Adebo doesn't commit a pass interference, if Rashid Shaheed doesn't muff the ball into the end zone, and if Young Hoku doesn't make the longest field goal in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium history, the Saints win that game. Don't get me started on how frustrated I was about that. And look, I think Atlanta, they're a quality team. They can do enough, and Kirk Cousins did enough to win that game, or the refs gave him the game by a legitimate penalty. But I just look at Tampa Bay. They look like they're rolling. Their run game looks pretty consistent. Baker was sensational. Terrell's injury is going to be significant. Hopefully he can play. But I just feel like the Bucs are kind of on a good roll. If the Falcons win this game at home, the Falcons have usually been a better home team. The Falcons will put themselves firmly back in the NFC South conversation. But I think Tampa, with how they've been playing, with their run game, with their defense the way it's been going, without Atlanta's offensive line at times has shown problems against pressure, I think, and with Cousins being a statue, I think the Bucs grind out this victory to firmly place themselves as the best team in the NFC South moving forward to start the second quarter of the year. That's like Tampa Bay here plus 1.5. Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Vikings over the Jets. The Vikings are the best team in the NFC. Been pretty much mostly consistent throughout the whole year. Sam Darnold is the MVP favorite. Aaron Jones is running really well. The Vikings defense for the first three quarters against Green Bay was sensational. That 22-point fourth quarter barrage was surprising, but they held off. And they did get 3 more turnovers, which was impressive. And after watching what the Jets did in the Robert Saleh special, the Robert Saleh stinky special, I have massive questions about the Jets moving forward. And this 3-game stretch is going to really question where the Jets go as a football team. And I think after what you saw, at least through, the first quarter of the season, maybe this game the Jets would have blown out Denver, or, maybe even would have beat Denver, because you could have said, okay, it was an ugly win. Denver's defense has played pretty well. But after what you saw, the fact that they lost, the fact that Zerline missed a 50-yarder, the fact that they couldn't run the ball at the 1-yard line for some dumb reason, 13 penalties for 90 yards, the Vikings coming off the confidence they have, I think the Vikings just go into this game and they win it and get to 5-0 for the first time since 2016. And I feel like this is different than the 16 Vikings because this is genuinely, in my opinion, the best team in the NFC. And you can make an argument for this year alone, the best team in the NFL, period, from what I've seen through the first quarter of the year. So that's like Minnesota here, minus 2.5, Minnesota straight up. Next game, Chicago over Carolina. I'm going to trust the Bears defense here. The Bears defense has played sensational through a majority of the year. They have basically kept the Bears in every game. Caleb Williams played his first efficient game, which is a real positive sign for the Bears, because I feel like the Bears have a sense of, DeAndre Swift had 90 yards rushing. Their defense had a lot of big sacks and massive turnovers from Matt Stafford, especially one to Jaquan Brister that ended the game. And I just like what the Bears defense has done. And also the Bears, look, this is the Bryce Young Memorial game. In a weird way, I'd let Bryce Young start just so, you could have this moment of maybe how bad this trade was for the Carolina Panthers. Even though, again, Andy Dalton, to be fair, played an effective enough game, threw a horrible pick, and they should have taken a field goal at the beginning of the game, but I'm not going to get into that. But I think the Bears defense and how the Bears offense is slowly progressing along, I think the Bears win this game easily. Or the Bears win this game off their defense and Caleb Williams making a few more plays with his legs and his arm to beat the Panthers. Though the Panthers, with how they played, the losing Shaq Thompson to a torn Achilles is significant. I think the Panthers could make it competitive, but I think 4 points, the Bears at home, that defense, the way it's playing, take the Bears to win off those qualities alone. That's like Chicago or -4 in Chicago straight up. Next game, the Ravens over the Bengals. The Baltimore Ravens stunned me, and even as a fan, because they just rolled the Buffalo Bills from beginning to end. And I was incredibly shocked. Derrick Henry, leading the league in rushing, leading the league in scrimmage yards, just played an absolute brilliant game. And I think the Ravens, look, they know what they have them. They saw what their apex as a team could be. And they're playing a Bengal team, which they've had their number over the last several years with Joe Burrow, without Joe Burrow. And the Bengals, they still showed some defensive problems. The Panthers did put up 24 points. Andy Dalton had some moments where he was getting drives together. And I feel like with this Ravens offense, with this running style against that Bengals defensive line, we definitely can run the ball down their throat. We have the confidence, and I feel like with the Ravens' current defensive mindset, I think we can, hold on and get this victory. Lamar has routinely played well against the Bengals throughout his career. I think the Ravens have confidence. I just hope they're not overconfident playing a Bengal team that is desperate to get back into the division race itself. But I'm taking the Ravens here. More confidence, consistency against the Bengals throughout Lamar's tenure, and I just am concerned about the Bengals defense, and I feel like the Ravens offense can do enough to put up points to win this game. So that's all like Baltimore -2.5. Baltimore straight up. Next game, the Patriots over the Dolphins. This comes down to the fact that the Patriots defense has been fairly consistent the majority of the year, and the Dolphins don't have a quarterback. They've scored one offensive touchdown over the last 10 quarters. Or they've scored 2 offensive touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown in the last 10 quarters. And with how that Jalen Phillips left the game with an injury, that Dolphin defense looks demoralized. And until they get Tua back, the Dolphins need to call Russell Wilson, or need to call the Steelers to acquire Russell Wilson to put him on the Dolphins, because this Dolphins team is going to not matter when it counts at the end. And I just think I'm going to take Jacoby, because I think Jacoby's better than Skyler or Tyler. And unless they trade for a quarterback or sign somebody, there's no way I think the Dolphins going to New England win this game with how the Patriots are playing. I think Jacoby and that run game and that defense should be able to do enough that the Patriots should be able to grind out this win. If Tyler had shown something, I maybe would have taken the Dolphins away. If the Dolphins would have won with Tyler Huntley, I probably would have taken the Dolphins. But since they didn't, and I know what Jacoby is, he's better than what the Dolphins have, and I trust that Pats defense with the way with how the Dolphins offense has been inept without Tua, and I have to apologize to Tua because he's a lot more valuable than I thought. I think the Pats win this game off a grinding performance from their defense, and Jacoby Brissett being able to outplay whatever quarterback Mike McDaniel decides to start this weekend. So that's why I like New England here +1 and New England straight up. The next game, the Washington Commanders over the Cleveland Browns. This is a game to where I am taking Washington, based off the fact that Washington has had one of the more impressive offensive runs that I've seen. Jaden Daniels, Offensive Rookie of the Year, completing 82.2% of his passes through a 4-game span, highest in NFL history. Cliff Kingsbury is in his bag. The Commanders' defense shut down a promising Cardinal offense. It was a Cardinal sin to bet on the Cardinals last week, and I definitely regret that was the worst pick I made all week last week. But they're playing a Browns team that the offensive line shot to you-know-what. They lost their center, their guard, their tackles. They're all not playing. Nick Chubb is finally practicing, but that might not help at all. The offense, Elijah Moore can't do anything. The defense can play as well as they can, but you're playing one of the hotter offenses in the league. I think Washington genuinely gets a big win, in my opinion, in that way. So in that regard, yeah. So when I look at Washington in this regard, Washington should be able to, against a Browns team that's in shambles right now, offensive line-wise. Deshaun, even though, to be fair to Deshaun, I didn't think he was the big reason why they lost that game. Last weekend, that was Dustin Hopkins and that horrible drop by Amari Cooper that basically turned the game around. But again, you're playing a Washington team that's motivated. This offense has been clicking, and from what I've seen out of the Browns defense, the Washington offense should be able to put up enough points that I don't think the Browns will be able to respond. So that's like Washington here -3 and Washington straight up. The next game, Indianapolis over Jacksonville. This is a really hard one because through the history of this game in Jacksonville routinely beats the Colts every year. They beat the Colts every year in this stadium. But after what I've seen out of Jacksonville the last 4 weeks, but to be fair, they played a effective enough game against the Texans where they should have won. Even though again there was a botched a muff punt. They got to the 2-yard line to score one. They had the one score. So that you could argue was a bit of a gift that gave the Jags a bit of confidence. But I'm going to take the Colts here because I just feel like Richardson or Flacco, either one. I think the Colts are a bit more gritty. They're able to run the ball more effectively. Taylor, they said, should be fine. He should be able to play through the ankle sprain because it's very mild. But I am going to take the Colts here. I just trust the coaching staff a bit more. The Jags are in shambles. They're going to fire Doug Peterson at the end of the year, if not by the middle of the year, with how much tension and frustration there is in the locker room. But I'm going to take the Colts here to break the streak and put the Jags in probably their death nail, finally, is that I think the Colts, grind out a win with Taylor, with their defense the way it's going, and how the Jags just can't really generate that much of an effective offense. And I just think in late game situations, I'll trust Steichen with what he's been doing than what I've seen out of Doug Peterson with Jags all this year. So that's like Indianapolis here +2.5 and Indianapolis straight up. The next game, the Texans over the Bills. Houston has a bit of a better roster, and I feel like Houston has a higher expectation. I'm just going to take them because they're home. I think could the Bills win this game? Sure. But Houston, they have a healthier roster. They have more talent. They have a quality enough defense. I think the Bills, they're not going to look as bad. But I think Houston, if they're going to prove that, in my opinion, they're the second best team in the conference, they grind out this victory and prove that they've earned the right to definitively call themselves the second best team in the AFC by beating a quality opponent in the Buffalo Bills. So that's all. Like Houston are -1 and Houston straight up. The next game, the Denver Broncos over the Las Vegas Raiders. The Denver Broncos will win this game based off their defense, and I don't think Crosby and Adams will play. I think if one of them plays, that's not going to matter. If both of them play, I might have to think about it because I think that should help. And I think, the Raiders grinded out a win, and Denver at times has a rough running defense. But from what I've seen, I'll trust Bo Nix going up against that porous Raiders defense more than I've seen out of Gardner Minshew and this Raiders offense through the last few weeks. But they were fortunate they got a win, and they ran the air out of the football. They grinded out some tough runs. But I'm taking the Broncos here. Better defense at home, and I'll trust Sean Payton to outcoach Antonio Pierce in this regard. So that's like Denver -2.5 and Denver straight up. The next game, San Francisco over Arizona. The Cardinals' defense is really bad. The Niners were on a bit of a roll. They should get healthier, more consistent. Christian McCaffrey's going to be out till at least November, possibly longer. But if you're San Fran, just kind of keep rolling with the momentum here. Jeff Mason and them should be able to get you through the regular season, get you a lot of wins. It's not going to matter in a Super Bowl perspective. I think they need Christian back in that regard. But San Francisco here, dominant run game. The Cardinal defense couldn't stop the Commanders. I think Brock Purdy could put up similar numbers. The Commanders have better weapons. Trey McBride being out was really significant because they really didn't have another option outside of Marvin. And that Cardinal offensive line against that Niners pass rush should have a field day to make Kyler's Sunday have another tough, miserable Sunday. So that's all like San Francisco here -7.5 and San Francisco straight up. The next game, Green Bay over Los Angeles. The Rams are too hurt. I think if the Rams were healthy, I think I've already taken the Rams to win this game, but McVay's already ruled out Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, the offensive line's in shambles, and the Packers, that 22-point barrage gave me the confidence to say, okay, Jordan Love, even if he has some turnover problems, should be able to win this game. And I just feel like the Packers are playing the Rams at a very good time with the Rams injuries. So that's why Green Bay here -3.5 and Green Bay straight up. Next game, the Seahawks over the Giants. The Seahawks, they looked respectable. They put up 29 points. Geno threw it 52 times. That's a bit too much. Kenneth Walker had a monster game. I just don't believe in the Giants' offense, especially if Malik Neighbors is out, that they're going to have to worry about a offense putting up 42 points and Jared Goff going 18 for 18, setting an NFL record for 290 yards without an incompletion. Could the Giants make it competitive? Sure. The Giants' defense is pretty legit, and the Giants have mostly been in every game except week 1 this year. So the Giants' defense gets through Seattle's offensive line and can make it tough. I think the Giants can definitely make this a game, and that's why I took the Giants +6. But I think at the end of the day, Seattle has enough defensive talent, and if Malik Neighbors doesn't play, I don't think the Giants have to really worry about anything except stuffing the run, because the Giants really only have one genuine weapon on offense, and that's Wan'Dale Robinson if Malik Neighbors cannot go. But I will give the Giants defense credit. They played really well. Shane Bowens has done a good job with the defensive talent he has around him. But I'm going to take the Seahawks here. They're at home. Trust the coaching a bit more, and just trust the Seahawks' overall talent. Though the safety depth is going to be a massive concern in this game, because I believe they lost 3 safeties in the game. But give me Seattle here. They're at home. Grind out a win, and I think Geno outplays Daniel Jones by having more offensive talent around him. So that's why I like the Seattle Seahawks here straight up, and New York Giants +6. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Dallas Cowboys. The Pittsburgh Steelers showed a lot of grit in their game against the Colts. Like, for them to be down 17 and to actually make Justin Fields have to score touchdowns, they scored as many offensive touchdowns as they had the previous 3 weeks. I still have some questions about the offense, especially the fumbling, and the offensive lines in tatters because of all the injuries. But I think the reason why I'm going with Pittsburgh here is that I trust that defense to bounce back. I don't think this Pittsburgh defense is going to, start becoming the weak point of the team. And I think the Cowboys, with no Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, they have no expected pass rush at all. And I think the Cowboys grinded out a win because of the Giants' offense. I think the Steelers' offense, especially with how the Cowboys' defense has been against the run, If they give the ball to Najee, if they give the ball to Justin, if they just run it down the Cowboys' throats, they should be able to generate enough offense to win this game. And the Steelers' defense, if they let Joey, if they double-team CD, the Steelers really don't have any other significant... The Cowboys have no really other significant receiving threat. And I think the Steelers grind out a win at home in this great 70s rivalry. A lot of the older people love Cowboys, Steelers, two of the model brands. I'm going to go with the home team, the black and yellow. Healthier defense and a better running game wins them the day at home on Sunday night. So that's like Pittsburgh here minus 2.5. Pittsburgh straight up. And lastly, the Kansas City Chiefs over New Orleans Saints. Kansas City, gritty, grimy, 10 straight wins, 9-1 score. They will keep finding ways to win. They need to either trade for DeAndre Hopkins or Amari Cooper once the deadline happens. Because I think that the Chiefs need another receiver, especially if Rashee Rice is out for the year. He's getting second opinion this week, so I think he's going to be out for an extended amount of time regardless. It may not be season ending depending on what they say, but I'm going to take the Chiefs here because they can just grind out wins. The Saints are the Saints, and you just know how these games go. The Chiefs are going to find a way, through the refs or not, to grind out this victory against the Saints, who the Saints haven't looked bad, and they have more talent than the Chiefs do right now. But at the end of the day, in a big primetime spot, are you trusting Andy Reid or Mahomes or Dennis Allen and Derek Carr in a big spot in a close game? I'm going to trust Andy and Andy and Mahomes in that regard, pretty much 100 times out of 100. Maybe instead of 2 weeks when they actually play the Niners. That's a little bit of a tease. That Niners Chiefs pick, that might be one of the few times I might actually go against the Chiefs, but I'll think about it. So, but that's why I can't see you straight up. But New Orleans plus 5.5. So, those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see great people like Andrew Warren, Gio Knows, Half Moon's Picks, and all the other guys and gals that make predictions like I do. And that's it. So, until next week, either next Monday or Tuesday, good luck to all players, coaches, fellow prognosticators, and fantasy football players all over the country, all over the world. Best of luck, and until next week, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until then, everyone, so long.